With a full offseason to build around the guy, Marcel Reed has all the reason in the world to improve in year two as a starter. But the question is, how far can he go, and how far can he take A&M with him? Welcome back to the Player Spotlight series, guys, where we take a look at individual Aggies, do a deep dive on them, and look at their 2025 season outlook. We already looked at Casey Concepcion, Cassius Howell, Ruben Owens, all guys that I think have a very important 2025 coming up. And today, we're going to look at probably the most important guy on the offense, if not the team, and that's quarterback one, that's Marcel Reed. This time last year, Marcel Reed was just a distant echo in the back of our minds. It was the Connor Wigman show. We were hyping him up. We were saying he held the keys to this A&M offense, didn't have the best receivers. We're kind of unsure about the running game. Year one, Colin Klein, and it didn't go well. Marcel Reed comes in, hero versus LSU, big game versus Florida, starting in a pinch. There were ups and downs on the years, and I think on the year, and there was a lot of stuff to like about Marcel. But there's also a lot of stuff to look at and say, okay, this guy really needs to improve here in a year two to get A&M where they really want to go. And that's major success in a season where you have 5 tough road games on the slate, including games at Notre Dame, at LSU, and at Texas. So Marcel Reed's going to have to be on point, and today we're going to talk about his chances of doing so. We're going to talk about his strengths, weaknesses, areas he needs to improve in 2025, talk about the team around him, talk about this offense getting built around him, and maybe look at a few numbers and see what we can gather from that. Guys, like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. I'll continue to put this kind of stuff out the entire football preseason until we get into fall camp, where we get into hardcore preseason mode, where we get really, really into the nitty-gritty and start looking at this team and making some solid predictions about the year. So thanks, guys. Let's get right into this thing. Let's talk about his strengths. So when you look at Marcel Reed, coming in, I think it was week 3 versus Florida, first game, Connor Wigman goes down with that shoulder injury, out of the blue, didn't see it coming, didn't see the injury happen. All of a sudden, Marcel Reed is starting on the road at Florida, and he handled that game damn well. It wasn't like, okay, we have this quarterback controversy right away, but you kind of had it in the back of your head. What if Marcel Reed's the guy? What if Marcel Reed can run this Colin Klein offense? Colin Klein, a guy who liked to run the football himself when he was a quarterback at Kansas State. What if this thing's just smoother under Marcel? Because we saw Connor versus Notre Dame. Wasn't great. And things looked a lot smoother under Marcel. Just the operation alone was really good. But of course, you had your midseason lulls, right? The Arkansas game wasn't great. The Bowling Green game wasn't great. Connor Wigman comes back in for a couple of games, and then all of a sudden Marcel Reed is the hero bamboozling LSU, a game that LSU was not prepared to handle a quarterback of Marcel Reed's archetype in. And from then on, it was the Marcel Reed show. And more ups and downs, right? It wasn't great versus South Carolina. Didn't start great versus Auburn, but it did end pretty good. Ended the game with some good heroics, trying to get A&M back into the game. Unfortunately, defense didn't get them over that hump. The Texas game, another low. Bad game for Marcel against a really good defense. Probably a bad game for the offensive play calling as well. You were down Le'Veon Moss. That hurt Marcel Reed too. And then the bowl game was, I think, one of Marcel's best showings of the season, because you had a whole bowl game cycle to build the thing further for Marcel Reed. Install more Marcel Reed offensive plays. Stuff that featured his strengths a lot better. And of course, the main strength for Marcel, we all know it, we all see it, it's the mobility. It's the thing he hit LSU square in the face with over and over again in the second half of that October evening. It was beautiful. He can run RPO. He can run zone read. And his main attribute is he can scramble. And I think most of his best plays come off of off-script scrambles more so than design quarterback runs, although those were pretty good at times throughout the year as well. Now, the arm talent, there's some good and some bad. We'll talk about the good. He does have a very strong arm, and he can throw it on the run. But his main accuracy positives were in the short to intermediate game. That's where he thrived. That's where he was the most consistent. Obviously, we'll get into the rest in the negatives part, in the weaknesses part. And I thought Marcel Reed was a very admirable operator of an offense in a year one, and that showed versus Florida. I thought we got in and out of plays very smoothly. I thought that he got players involved in the offense very smoothly. I thought he made good decisions in the zone read and RPO departments. I think the Marcel Reed-centric stuff, he ran really, really well. But it wasn't all good. The weaknesses, deep ball accuracy, and that is weakness probably number one. That's probably his biggest shortcoming. I think that probably relates to another one that we'll talk about in a second, and that's the pocket stuff. But deep ball accuracy. 36 attempts, only 10 completions of balls 20 yards or more, 27.8%. 5 touchdowns, 2 INTs, 9.4 yards per attempt, but inconsistent in his delivery and touch on those throws. A lot of times those balls would just sail, right? And a lot of times he would force balls on those deep plays. You think about the Texas game. He had a pretty good start to that game, and then all of a sudden he's trying to do a little bit too much, runs to the sideline, throws a ball way up deep into double coverage. Taffy comes down with it, and that changed the game entirely. There are a lot of instances in the year where Marcel tries to force the deep ball, and that has to get cleaned up. Now, just to give you a comparison, another returning quarterback in the conference, Garrett Nussmeier, where Marcel Reed was 27.8% in this department. Nussmeier was 36%, 9 touchdowns in this department. So at least to get to that Nussmeier level, not too far off, but those plays can make or break or kill a drive. So that has to improve. And I think the one that he should most immediately improve, that he can immediately improve in a year or two, and you're talking about his weaknesses, pocket awareness. Tends to get sped up when pressure is coming. And I don't mean players in his face. Way too often, he would get sped up just when he saw pressure. He would get kind of caught up in that, should I pass the ball? Should I just tuck it and go? Should I hit the check down? He kind of got caught up in that decision making a little bit too often. And that's something that you would expect to improve in a year or two with more reps under his belt. And we'll talk about the personnel around him that can help him in this department very soon. Now, this is going to be a very critical aspect of his game that he'll need to hone in, because you can't be happy-footed. You can't be making rash decisions in the pocket when you have 5 critical road games on a season, particularly the big 3, LSU, Notre Dame, and Texas. You're going to have that poise on the road. And then the last one is just his passing decision-making, and we kind of touched on that in the pocket awareness. The main thing that bothers me, the main thing that I want to see him fix in this department, he just needs to take what's given. I think a lot of times he had the check down, he had the running back in the flat, and he decides to tuck and run. And yes, he should be looking to tuck and run. That is a Marcel Reed staple. He is a scrambling quarterback. But with guys like Ruben Owens, guys like Le'Veon Moss, guys like Terry Bussey, now with KC Concepcion, you're going to have to hit these short ones and give those guys a chance to make big plays, because those are guys that need the ball in their hands in such situations. We talked about it in the Ruben Owens video. If you get Ruben Owens the ball in the flat with a defender 10, 15 yards in front of him, with Ruben Owens with a chance to make a play there, that's what you want that player to be in. That's the situation you want a player like Ruben Owens to be in. A one-on-one with daylight ahead of him, and that's what these checkdowns can present, especially with the leverage of Marcel Reed's running ability, keeping defenses and safeties honest. So you have to hit those. You have to take the give-me's. That is probably... that and the pocket awareness are the things that needs to fix. It's the cerebral aspect of the game. The deep ball will come and go. You can build an offense and kind of prioritize away from that. It'll have to improve regardless, but you need to control the absolute controllables, and that is the pocket happy-footedness and hitting those checkdowns and the gimmies. Let's not force stuff. Let's not get tuck happy. Let's make sound decisions. Let's talk about the fit in this offense, because I think Marcel Reed has the perfect runway to excel in a year or two if he's able to improve in those key areas we just talked about. O-line. You got 7 starter caliber players coming back. We all know about it. It's all we've been talking about. This O-line should be an absolute strength of this offense. Now, it wasn't perfect last year. We'll talk a lot more about it as we get into preseason prep. But they were about a B- grade last year, and that is compared to like a C- or failing grade the 3 previous years before. Adam Cushing has done a tremendous job with the bodies he already had in the building and the ones he added in Fayu and Reed Adams. Great guys to add. They performed admirably. They're going to take a step forward because continuity is so critical in the offensive line. Trust, communication, chemistry, expectations, that's all going to be much more solid in this year. That's a year 2 for them as a group, but obviously years 3 and beyond for a lot of those players. So when you talk about the muddy pocket, when you talk about pressure kind of getting to Marcel's head, he can rest easy on the fact that this should be an offensive line that can protect a lot better than they did last year. They were a little bit inconsistent in pass pro last year. They should be much more solid this year, and Marcel Reed should have a very clean pocket, and he should be able to diagnose blitzes a lot better with experience under his belt. He should be able to assign responsibilities to the back, to call the mic. He should be able to do all that stuff a lot more efficiently now. The running back room. Obviously, we know the stable is back. All 4 are back now. The one that's going to, kind of determine the ceiling of this room is the level of health that you get from a Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels. But really high floor in this room with 4 bodies back. Plus, now you have 2 quality freshmen in the room in case of emergency. You didn't have that last year. You really wish you would. That, coupled with the offensive line, should make a very formidable running back running attack. A lot of those guys are lethal out of the backfield as well, like an E.J. Smith and a Reuben Owens. Lethal, maybe not the right word, but, threatening and capable out of the backfield, with Reuben Owens having tremendous upside in that department. We talked about the check down ability of Reuben Owens a second ago. That has to be utilized, and it will be utilized, I would expect, in a year 2 for Marcel. Wide receiver room should be the biggest change for Marcel in a year 2. Last year, several possession guys. Noah Thomas, Ja'Day Walker, Jabri Barber. Good players. It really turned out to be that Jabri Barber was one of his favorite targets late down the stretch of last year. A lot of short completions to Jabri. Noah Thomas, they were maybe building a little bit of rapport in that bowl game, getting some fades, getting some corner routes in the end zone. Going to miss that this year. But where Marcel Reed thrives, short, intermediate, RPO, that kind of stuff, you're going to have a lot of receivers that can play ball with that. A Casey Concepcion is liable to take a 5-yarder and break it into 15, 20, 30 on any given play. The same can be said about Terry Bussey. You can say the same thing about a Reuben Owens out of the backfield or any other of the running backs. And you're going to have that Mario Craver, that high-end, potential slot, cut either direction, get open, great route runner, great quickness, that kind of a build in a receiver, similar to Jabri Barber with perhaps more upside now with Marcel in year 2. So you have these weapons that will really, really complement what Marcel is good at, and that is that short intermediate game. You got to use them. You got to build this thing for Marcel to where he can get those guys in balls where he's comfortable doing so. You don't have to force that deep ball consistently with these kind of players. And you don't have to, rely on that touch ball as consistently that Marcel maybe struggles with a little bit. You can play those RPOs and hopefully get some big plays. Now, the big wild card on this offense, and we're kind of going through the offense right now because I think it all relates to Marcel, that tight end room. You need better blocking. You need to have that red zone threat come from this room because of your lack of size in the receiver room. At least you would think. A guy like Ashton Bethel-Roman does have some size, but, you really want a guy like Amari Niblack to be that red zone threat. And from reports, I'm not in the room, I'm not hands-on like some of the insiders are, Amari Niblack has a pretty good early report coming out of College Station. So we'll see what happens there. But for sure, Nate Borkesher will have to be a reliable blocker in this offense for it to go. We saw some blocking inconsistently from guys like Theo Mellon-Orstrom last year, guys like Shane Calhoun, guys like Trey Watson. We're going to need to step up in that department in a big way to maximize this running attack, which will, in turn help Marcel Reed overall. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement in this tight end room, and I think there's a good chance it does improve, but that's far from guaranteed. That is a wild card of this offense. But, again, I think Marcel Reed has everything you could hope for coming to an offense in a year 2 as a starter to improve and to pick up where he left off on the positive side of things in this next season. Now let's talk about the coaching fit, because last year we remember, and this is a point I bring up all the time, this offense in a year 1 was built for Connor Wigman. Off-season, spring camp, fall camp. Remember in spring, Connor wasn't 100%, but he played. They forced the issue to get him those QB1 reps in a new offense. He was prioritized. He was learning. The offense was built for a pocket quarterback like Connor Wigman. Now, from the half-point year, from the LSU game last year forward, everything is Marcel Reed-centric, and that includes another spring for Marcel, an off-season for Marcel, and going forward, a fall camp for Marcel Reed. You should expect a lot more of the look that you got in the bowl game. A lot of RPO, a lot of short stuff, a lot of catch and run, a lot of end around, a lot of bussy on that's going side to side, a lot of just stuff that's closer to the quarterback. You shouldn't be seeing as many deep balls. You shouldn't be seeing as many dropbacks, although he will have to improve in that department. You should see this offense lean more into his strengths than last year at a more consistent basis, because you were installing on the fly in a year 1. That's what happens. You install week on week. And yes, you get your base packages in fall, early season. That started really fast with Notre Dame. But, you had to kind of build it on the run last year. Now you're going to have a much, much better starting point for the quarterback and the whole team. But we're talking about Marcel here. This should be a much more Marcel Reed-friendly offense from week 1 going forward. And because of that, I think the outlook is really good for Marcel. Let's talk about his ceiling and his floor to wrap this thing up. The ceiling. I don't foresee, a Heisman-like year from Marcel Reed. And I think that's okay for A&M. Like, even on the upside, I just don't see Marcel Reed lighting the world on fire. But I can see him becoming like, a top 6-5 quarterback in the conference. And I think that should be enough with what this offense has around him. The ceiling Marcel this year is a player that takes care of the ball, keeps the chains moving, a lot of rhythm and flow with the offense. RPOs in short game becomes very explosive with guys like KC, Bussy, and Ruben Owens. Le'Veon Moss is able to, rail off 10, 15-yarders on demand like he did last year when A&M was at their best. And the offense just has a nice rhythm about it. The O-line holds up. The run game is healthy. The offense is balanced. And the threat of the short stuff can open up some more, some easier targets downfield. Some easier looks in the deep game where Marcel's not having to thread the needle or make a rash decision down the field. So it's a flow offense. It's not necessarily a big play. It's not necessarily a lot of drop back passes. It's a rhythm offense. The floor. You're still inconsistent with reads. You're still inconsistent under pressure. Deep ball doesn't really improve, and you're forcing balls down there. You're not getting those consistent short plays, so you're forced to drop back a lot more than you want to with Marcel. The offense becomes a little bit predictable. You're running on first and second. You're taking third and longs and throwing the deep ball. You can see the coaching staff get a little bit antsy late in the season if growth stalls because you can't just see that happen. And A&M's all of a sudden outlook is like a 7-8 win season instead of what we're hoping for, an 8-9-10 win season, which is around the ceiling of this team. So overall, Reed does not have to be a superstar for A&M to be good this year. He needs to be a smart operator. He needs to take what's given to him by the defense. The talent is there. The weapons are there. The coaching is there for Reed. And now it comes down to consistency and decision-making. High floor, in my opinion. I think that running game gives him a relatively, low disaster scenario kind of a player. I just don't see the bottom falling out for him. But let's see what he becomes. I'm really excited to watch this guy in a year or two, to see him grow, to see that deep ball improve, but really just see him be a solid SEC quarterback. So guys, is Marcel Reed the guy at A&M? Is he the quarterback that leads A&M to their first 9-10 win season since 2020? Or are we one quarterback away still? I happen to think that he'll be just fine this year, but again, I'm not predicting that super high-end superstar season. So guys, the next spotlight is going to be Le'Veon Moss, but I have another video I'm going to drop before then, so look out for that one in the coming days. Like, subscribe, and check out my merch store. I just dropped some merch. It's in the description below. If y'all want some Aggie merch, some funny merch, it's down there. Check it out. Thank you guys a lot. Gig 'em.